The afternoon sun reflected brightly off the glass facade of Imperium Motors, the city's most luxurious car dealership. Outside, models easily costing over 6 figures gleamed, with impeccable finishes and details that would make any car enthusiast sigh. Employees dressed in impeccable suits glided through the showroom with the confidence of those who believed they could spot a millionaire client at first glance. Across the street, a battered old car, its paint faded with age, slowly came to a stop. The engine roared for a few seconds before falling silent. The door opened with a low creak, and out stepped a simple-looking man. He wore a grey t-shirt, worn jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. His steps were calm, almost hesitant, as he crossed the street, his hands in his pockets, his curious gaze fixed on the gleaming cars. Behind the glass, 2 salespeople exchanged glances and mocking smiles. "Look at this," one of them murmured, straightening his jacket. "I bet you'll ask the price out of curiosity. Or maybe ask for a brochure to dream about at home," the other replied, stifling a laugh. The man opened the dealership door, feeling the immediate impact of the air conditioning. That warded off the suffocating heat outside. The scent of new leather and car wax was almost intoxicating. He walked slowly across the polished floor, his eyes taking in every detail of the vehicles. Behind the main counter, manager Patricia looked up from her tablet, frowning as she saw him enter. Her heels echoed through the room as she approached with a practiced smile. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, her voice sweet but with a hint of obvious superiority. "Can I help you?" The man smiled, revealing a serene and polite expression. "Good afternoon. I'm just looking around, if that's okay." Patricia studied him from head to toe. His simple t-shirt, his worn sneakers, his relaxed demeanor. She tilted her head slightly, maintaining her smile. Of course," she replied, but her eyes spoke volumes. "Just to let you know, the models we have here are quite exclusive. Perhaps you'd be more interested in the used car dealerships in the neighboring neighborhood." He didn't flinch. He continued walking calmly among the cars, admiring every detail, while the other employees whispered in the background. Patricia crossed her arms, following him with her gaze. "Just don't touch anything, please. The vehicles here are extremely expensive," she said with a forced smile. The man stopped in front of a black sports car with chrome accents that reflected his face. He ran his hand thoughtfully over his chin and muttered to himself, "Nice car." And without raising his voice, he added, "Let's see how they treat someone like me." At that moment, no one imagined that this simple man had a secret capable of changing the fate of everyone there. Patricia approached with firm steps, the click of her heels echoing like a warning in the silent room. The man stood in front of the sports car, his fingers close to the door handle, but not touching it. Patricia forced a smile, but her tone carried a cold weight. "Sir, I really need to ask you to keep your distance from the vehicles. These models cost more than entire houses, and any brand can be a big problem." He turned slowly, looking her in the eye calmly. "Don't worry, I'm just observing." Patricia sighed, crossing her arms impatiently. "I understand, but I need to be honest with you. Our dealership serves a very specific audience. People who come here usually already know what they want, and are, let's say, financially prepared for it." The man's eyes sparkled for a moment, but his smile remained calm. "And how do you know I'm not prepared?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The manager hesitated for a brief second, but quickly regained her composure. "Well, experience, I'd say. I usually quickly identify a typical customer." In the background, one of the salespeople tried to hide a laugh, while another looked the man up and down, as if analyzing every detail of his outfit. The atmosphere in the showroom was beginning to grow heavier. "Maybe I can recommend a dealership with more affordable vehicles," Patricia continued, her smile now clearly forced. "That way you won't waste your time here." The man took a deep breath, his hands still in his pockets. His expression remained calm, but there was a different glint in his eyes. He took a step back and said calmly, "Interesting, very interesting." Patricia raised her eyebrows, confused by his reaction. Before she could say anything else, the man added, "I'd like to speak with the owner of this dealership. Can we schedule that now?" The manager gave a short, mocking laugh. "The owner, oh, I'm sorry, but the owner doesn't have time to answer every single person who shows up here. He's a very busy businessman." The man just smiled, saying nothing. Then, slowly, He took his cell phone out of his pocket, unlocked the screen, and began typing. Patricia frowned, not understanding what was happening. "Are you ... calling someone?" she asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and irritation. "Yes ... he replied, putting the phone to his ear. "I'll call the owner directly. I think he'll want to know how they're treating customers here." Patricia froze for a moment, feeling a chill run down her spine. At that moment, the entire showroom seemed suspended in time. The employees stopped their conversations and looked toward the man, who was speaking calmly into the phone. "I'm here at the dealership. Come on in ... I think it's time to meet your team." He ended the call and put the cell phone in his pocket. Then, he looked at Patricia and said, with a slight smile, "He should be here in a few minutes." The manager's heart raced. An uneasy premonition began to take hold of her, and at that moment, she had no idea she was about to face the biggest shock of her career. The showroom was silent. The sound of wristwatches and the air conditioning seemed louder than ever. Patricia stood still, trying to maintain her composure, but inside, her heart was beating fast. The salespeople exchanged anxious glances, as if they all sensed something unexpected was about to happen. The simple man, hands in his pockets, walked slowly around the showroom, calmly observing the cars. He seemed completely oblivious to the discomfort he was causing around him. "I wonder who he called," whispered one salesperson to another, trying not to attract attention. "I don't know, but I think the boss is going to have problems," the other replied with a nervous smile. Suddenly, the sound of a powerful engine echoed outside. A black luxury car with tinted windows and chrome wheels pulled up in front of the main entrance. All the employees automatically looked in that direction. The car door opened, and then an elegant man got out. He wore an impeccable navy blue suit and a wristwatch that gleamed in the sun. His leather shoes tapped rhythmically on the tile floor. As he walked through the entrance, Patricia felt a shiver run down her spine. As soon as the man opened the glass door, the soft bell rang through the showroom, and the silence became absolute. "Mr. Roberto," the newcomer said with a genuine smile, extending his hand. "What an honor to see you here so early." The simply dressed man turned and shook the executive's hand firmly. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Marcos. I wanted to see firsthand how things were working around here, and it seems I've already figured it out." Patricia's eyes widened. She felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Mr. Roberto," she murmured, almost voiceless. "You ... are you the owner?" Marcos, the regional director, gave Patricia a serious look, the smile fading from his face. "Patricia, I see you've already met the new owner of Imperium Motors." The manager swallowed, her face turning pale. Her briefcase nearly fell from her trembling hands. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. I didn't know," she stammered, her eyes brimming with tears. The man, still calm, approached her and spoke in a soft but firm voice. "I didn't know that someone like me could own a place like this." The silence that followed was so heavy it felt like the air had drained from the room. All the employees, now with their eyes lowered, waited for the outcome of this scene. Patricia opened her mouth to explain, but before she could say anything, Roberto raised his hand. "Calm down, let's talk about this with everyone." He turned to Marcos and said decisively, "Gather the entire team in the conference room. It's time to talk about the future of this dealership." Patricia felt her stomach churn. She knew the biggest lesson of her life was about to begin. The showroom was plunged into a heavy silence. Patricia stood motionless, clutching her briefcase to her chest as if it were a shield. The rest of the team avoided her gaze, their eyes fixed on the polished floor reflecting the bright lights of the luxury cars. "Please, everyone to the conference room. Now," Marcos, the regional director, ordered firmly. The salespeople and receptionists obeyed immediately, walking in a line with quick, nervous steps. Patricia was the last to enter, sitting in one of the chairs at the back, her posture rigid, her hands trembling. In the center of the room, Roberto remained standing. His presence seemed to fill every inch of the space. Despite the simplicity of his clothing, there was a natural authority about him that could not be ignored. He rested his hands on the table. Leaning forward, he leaned forward slightly. "Thank you for being here. I know it was last minute, but I needed to see something for myself," he began, his voice calm but firm. The employees exchanged tense glances. Patricia kept her eyes fixed on the table, her face pale. For those who don't know, I'm Roberto Silva, the new owner of Imperium Motors, he continued, letting the words hang in the air. And today I came here on purpose, dressed like this, driving a simple car, without telling anyone. I wanted to see how you treat customers when you think they don't look rich. A low murmur ran through the room, but Roberto raised his hand, and silence returned. What I saw deeply disappointed me, he said, looking directly at Patricia. I was judged by my appearance, my clothes, and the way I entered this store. They told me I might not be the right customer here, that I should look for a more suitable store. Patricia felt her face heat up, but she didn't dare look up. I want to make something clear to all of you, Roberto continued, his voice firmer. This dealership will not be known only for the luxury cars it sells, but for the respect and the way it treats each person who walks through these doors. If anyone thinks they can continue to judge customers by their appearance, they might want to consider another place to work. The tension was almost palpable. Some employees swallowed hard, while others seemed to ponder every word. Roberto then walked slowly around the room, letting his eyes roam each face. He stopped beside Patricia and said in a softer but equally firm tone, "Patricia, do you want to say something?" She hesitated, her voice almost a whisper. "I made a mistake. I judged you, and I deeply regret it." Roberto nodded. "We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them. And that's what I hope for from now on, learning and change." He returned to the center of the room and concluded, "Imperium Motors will be an example of excellence, not only in cars, but in service. Here, every person will be treated with dignity, no matter who they are, and whoever disagrees with that, can get up and leave right now." No one moved. The silence was broken only by the low hum of the air conditioning. Roberto then smiled. "Slightly, great, that means we're ready to begin a new phase." The conference room was silent when Roberto left, leaving only the sound of his footsteps echoing through the showroom as he returned to inspect the store. Marcos remained in the doorway, observing the employees, still frozen, their expressions tense. Patricia sat at the back of the room, motionless. Roberto's words echoed in her mind like a hammer. "This dealership will be an example of respect, and whoever disagrees with that can leave right now." Her face felt hot, her hands sweating, and her heart racing. Never in her years of career had she been exposed like this, in front of everyone, with her pride wounded and her authority shattered. "Patricia, are you okay?" Sophia, one of the younger receptionists, asked quietly. "I am, she replied, almost in a whisper, but the truth was different. Patricia wasn't okay at all. As soon as the employees were dismissed, Patricia remained alone in the room. She felt like a scolded child, but deep down, she knew Roberto was right. She'd always prided herself on knowing who could afford those cars, but she'd never stopped to think how unfair and cruel that was. What if he really were just a regular customer? She reflected, resting her face in her hands. Would I have treated him the same way? The door opened, and Marcos entered. "Patricia, Mr. Roberto wants to speak with you privately." Now, she felt a chill run down her spine. She took a deep breath, straightened her blazer, and tried to compose her expression, but her eyes still betrayed the turmoil she felt inside. "Okay, I'll be right there," she replied, her voice trembling. As she walked through the showroom toward her private office, she felt all eyes on her. Some colleagues looked at her with pity, others with a certain relief that they weren't in her place. Each step seemed heavier than the last. When she reached the door, she knocked lightly. "Come in," said Roberto's firm voice. Patricia opened the door slowly and saw the simple man sitting behind his desk, now with an even more imposing air of authority. He looked up and stared at her directly, but without any sign of anger, only serenity. "Patricia, sit down. We need to talk." And in that instant, she knew this would be the most important conversation of her life. Patricia closed the door behind her, the click echoing like a warning in the silence of the office. The space was elegant, with a polished dark wood desk, shelves with miniature luxury cars, and a large glass window overlooking the showroom. Roberto sat in the leather armchair, his hands clasped on the table. His eyes fixed on her didn't convey anger, but there was something even more uncomfortable, a calm that seemed to see right through her soul. "Please sit down," he said, his voice firm. Patricia obeyed, feeling strangely small in the chair. Her blazer, once a symbol of confidence and authority, now seemed to weigh heavily on her shoulders. Patricia, do you know why you're here? Roberto asked with the calmness of someone who already knew the answer. She took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. I know, because I judged you by your appearance. And that was a mistake. Roberto leaned forward slightly. It was more than a mistake. It was a reflection of something bigger. I want you to tell me, how many other people have you treated this way? How many business opportunities has this dealership lost because someone was analyzed by the clothes they wore or the car they arrived in? The words cut like knives. Patricia felt her eyes sting, but forced herself not to cry. I hadn't thought of it that way. I always thought I was filtering customers to optimize service. Roberto shook his head slowly. That kind of filtering destroys a company from within. We're not here just to sell cars. We're here to build relationships, offer respect and experience to everyone. Do you understand? Patricia nodded with a lump in her throat. I understand, and I am so sorry. Roberto was silent for a moment, studying her expression. Then he sighed and leaned back in his chair. Patricia, you've been at this dealership for years. You're a competent manager and have already delivered good results. But what happened today, is a wake-up call, not just for you, but for the entire team. She bit her lower lip, struggling for words. Are you going to fire me? No, he replied firmly. I believe in second chances, but only if there's real change. Are you willing to relearn? To be an example of the culture I want to build here. Patricia looked up, surprised and teary. I am. I want to do this right, sir. I promise. Roberto kept his gaze serious, but a faint smile formed on his lips. Then let's begin. Change starts with you. Outside, employees listened through the closed door, anxious to know what would become of the manager. Little did they know that this was only the first step in a transformation that would forever change the way Imperium Motors treated its customers and its own employees. The next morning, the Imperium Motors showroom looked different. The gleam of luxury cars still drew attention, but the air seemed heavier. Employees paced back and forth with measured steps, whispering among themselves. Do you think he'll fire Patricia? Julio, one of the older salespeople, asked as he straightened his tie. I don't know, but the way he looked at her yesterday. Sophia replied nervously. At 9 a.m. sharp, Marcos appeared at the showroom door and announced, Mr. Roberto wants everyone in the conference room. Now, the employees looked at each other. No one dared question. One by one, they settled into their chairs. Patricia entered last, head down, without the high heels she usually wore. She seemed smaller, more fragile. Roberto was already there, standing, hands in his pockets, his calm gaze conveying authority. He waited for everyone to settle in before speaking. Good morning, everyone, he said, his voice firm. Yesterday I came here in disguise. Not because I liked tests, but because I needed to see for myself how this dealership treats people. A complete silence fell. Some employees avoided his gaze, others swallowed hard. And what I saw, disappointed me. Roberto continued, looking around. I was judged by my appearance, by the clothes I wore, by the car I arrived in, not by who I am or what I could bring to this company. Julio cleared his throat, trying to ease the tension, but Roberto's look made him immediately retreat. Starting today, that will change, Roberto stated, his voice thick with determination. It doesn't matter if someone comes in here wearing a designer suit or a simple t-shirt. Every customer will be treated with the same respect. No exceptions. Sophia raised her hand timidly. Mr. Roberto, I think most of us try to be fair to everyone, but sometimes we don't even realize when we're acting prejudiced. Roberto nodded. That's true. That's why I'm implementing weekly training on inclusive service. We're going to reprogram our way of thinking and acting. And anyone who doesn't want to be part of this change can get up and leave now. Silence fell over the room again. No one spoke. Moved Patricia, sitting in the back, felt her eyes fill with tears. For the first time in years, she wasn't the confident manager. She was just a woman trying to right a wrong that could have cost her career. Roberto looked her directly in the eye and said, Patricia, you will be responsible for leading this transformation. You will show everyone how respect must be at the center of our work. Are you ready for this? She took a deep breath, her voice breaking, and replied, I am, sir, and I promise I won't disappoint you. Roberto gave a slight smile. I hope not, because from now on, this dealership won't be known just for the cars it sells, but for the way it treats every human being who walks through these doors. 2 days later, the Imperium Motors showroom seemed quieter than usual. The salespeople spoke quietly among themselves, still feeling the weight of Roberto's words at the meeting. Patricia, now with a more humble demeanor, walked around the room with measured steps. With every glance he received from his colleagues, he felt the weight of the responsibility he had assumed. Suddenly, the glass door opened, and a man entered. He wore a worn shirt, faded pants, and simple sandals. He carried a small backpack on his back and walked cautiously, as if afraid of being in the wrong place. A few salespeople exchanged glances, and Giulio couldn't resist whispering to Sofia, "That one's definitely just looking. He's not going to buy anything." But Patricia, who was near the counter, heard. She turned immediately, giving Giulio a serious look. "It doesn't matter if he buys or not. He deserves to be treated like any other customer." Without hesitation, she walked toward the man, a genuine smile on her face. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Imperium Motors. May I help you?" The man looked surprised. His eyes widened, as if he hadn't expected such a warm welcome. "Oh, I was just looking around. I don't want to disturb you." "Absolutely not." Patricia replied kindly. "Make yourself at home. Would you like me to show you some models?" He hesitated for a moment, but ended up smiling. "Maybe. But I'll warn you right now that I don't have the money for those cars. I just came to dream a little." Patricia tilted her head slightly, maintaining her smile. "Dreaming is the first step to success. Shall we take a look together?" The other salespeople in the background watched the scene silently, as if expecting her to lose her temper at any moment. But Patricia remained calm, explaining the details of each vehicle, as if she was serving the store's most important customer. Meanwhile, Roberto, who was in his office, watched the scene through the glass wall. A slight smile appeared on his face. He knew this was the test Patricia needed, and she was passing with flying colors. After a few minutes, the humble man thanked her. "Thank you very much, Miss. No one has ever treated me like this, in a store like this. I'll keep that in my heart." Patricia felt her eyes well up. "Thank you for coming. And who knows, maybe you'll be back soon to take the car of your dreams." When the man left, the showroom felt different. There was a new energy in the air. The salespeople fell silent, reflecting on what they had just witnessed. Roberto entered the showroom and spoke, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "That's what I expect from now on. Every customer, every person, should leave here feeling respected. Patricia, you're on the right track." Patricia smiled with discreet tears in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt proud of herself. In the following days, the atmosphere at Imperium Motors began to change. For the first time in years, employees were more attentive to how they treated each person who entered the store. It wasn't just about selling cars, it was about respect, and Patricia was leading this transformation. She began guiding the team in short morning meetings, reminding everyone of what Roberto had said. "Here, no one judges anyone by their clothes, their car, or their way of speaking. Every customer is unique and deserves the best possible service." Sofia, the youngest receptionist, commented during one of the meetings, "Patricia, I've never seen you like this. You almost seem like a different person." Patricia smiled, a little shyly. "Maybe it took me a while to realize it, but we can all change when we understand the impact we have on others' lives." Roberto followed everything closely, but from a distance. He wanted to see how far Patricia would go with her new approach. And so, he decided to propose one last test. On Friday afternoon, a man walked into the dealership. He wore extremely simple clothes, had disheveled hair, and was holding a crumpled envelope in his hand. The salespeople exchanged glances, and Giulio muttered dismissively, "Here comes another curious person. ... Patricia listened and looked at Giulio firmly. "Giulio, remember what we said. It doesn't matter who walks through that door." She approached the man with the same welcoming smile as always. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you?" I need to talk to someone about buying a car," he said, visibly nervous. "Of course," Patricia replied politely. "What model do you have in mind?" The man hesitated, then held out the envelope to her. "Perhaps you should read this first." Patricia opened the envelope, confused. Her eyes widened at the contents. A check for an amount that could buy the most expensive car in the store, and a handwritten letter. "This is the customer who will test whether you have truly learned to treat everyone with respect. The decision you make now will be the final test." She felt butterflies in her stomach. She looked up and saw Roberto standing in the showroom doorway, watching the scene intently. The man's voice interrupted her thoughts. "So, do you think I can buy it here, or should I look for another store?" Patricia took a deep breath, smiled heartily, and replied, "Yes, you can buy here, and I will personally ensure you have the best experience of your life." Roberto smiled discreetly at that. He knew Patricia had finally understood the essence of what he wanted for Imperium Motors. The Imperium Motors showroom looked different that afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the windows, reflecting off the luxury cars and creating an almost symbolic glow as if the store had gained new energy. Roberto, with his calm and imposing demeanor, gathered the entire team for an unexpected meeting. Patricia was there, standing beside him, her heart racing and her hands clasped. She didn't know exactly what was coming, but she sensed something important was about to happen. The curious employees settled into silence. Some were still surprised by the transformation of the manager who, weeks ago, had been known for her coldness and was now the face of the dealership's new culture. Roberto began speaking, his voice firm but with a warm tone that captured everyone's attention. "When I bought Imperium Motors, I didn't just want a company that sold expensive cars. I wanted a place where everyone was treated with respect, regardless of who they were or how they presented themselves." He looked around, his eyes roaming over each employee, before settling on Patricia. "And I confess, I tested you. I came here as a regular customer, dressed in simple clothes, to see how I would be received. And what I saw that day showed me that something needed to change." Patricia lowered her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the memories. But Roberto continued, "Today, I'm here to say that I'm proud. Proud because I saw a transformation happen before my eyes." He turned to Patricia, smiling. "Patricia, you could have closed yourself off, you could have resisted change, but you chose to learn, grow, and lead by example." She felt her eyes well up, but she maintained her composure. "Thank you, Mr. Roberto. I had to fall to understand that every person deserves to be seen with dignity." Roberto nodded. "And that's why I want to announce, in front of everyone, that Patricia will be promoted to Director of Customer Service at Imperium Motors. She will lead our new training program, ensuring that this culture of respect is never lost here again." A murmur of surprise ran through the room, followed by heartfelt applause. Sophia was the first to clap, soon joined by the other employees. Patricia, overcome with emotion, couldn't hold back her tears. Roberto extended his hand to her. "Welcome to the new era of Imperium Motors." She shook his hand firmly and said in a trembling but confident voice, "Thank you. I won't disappoint." As the applause echoed through the showroom, Roberto looked out the window and saw the reflections of all the cars glistening in the sun. He smiled. For the first time, he felt he had built something much bigger than business. He had built a community based on respect and humanity. And so, Imperium Motors began a new era, not just selling cars, but spreading a powerful lesson about the value of every